Denny Hamlin beat him by less than a second in May. 7 weeks later, Chase Briscoe stood on the roof of his own car and cast an imaginary fishing rod into a crowd of 50,000 people. What happened in between is one of the best redemption runs NASCAR has produced all year, and almost nobody outside the garage is talking about it yet. Because this isn't just a story about a race win, it's a story about a crew chief's birthday, a box of British chocolates, a 20-race winless drought, and a driver who NASCAR quietly moved into championship contention without most fans noticing. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the next 7 weeks might decide whether Chase Briscoe becomes the most dangerous underdog heading into the playoffs. Before we get into it, if you're into honest, deep dive NASCAR breakdowns like this one, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. We're building this channel one race weekend at a time, and having you here from early makes a real difference. Now let's get into it. The race nobody expected to matter this much. NASCAR's Cup Series went back to Chicagoland Speedway this year for the first time in 7 seasons. The sport had spent 3 years racing a street course through downtown Chicago instead, and there was genuine curiosity about how the next-gen car would behave on a track everybody remembered as rough, bumpy, and unpredictable. Rain hit the area both Friday and Saturday, causing headaches with parking and practice. But once the green flag dropped on Sunday, the racing lived up to every bit of the hype. This was the 19th points race of the season, and it turned into a showcase for one manufacturer in particular. Toyota put 7 cars into the top 10, something that had never happened before in a Cup Series race. William Byron, driving a Chevrolet, was the lone outsider strong enough to lead most of the day. But when the race actually mattered, in the closing laps, it was all Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas fighting at the front. And that's where this story really starts. Because to understand why Sunday meant so much, you have to rewind about 7 weeks, back to a race that Chase Briscoe didn't win. The one that got away at Dover. Back in May, NASCAR held its all-star race at Dover Motor Speedway, a change of scenery from the usual home at North Wilkesboro. It's an exhibition event, no points, but a cool $1 million goes to the winner, and pride is very much on the line. Briscoe was fast all day. He split segment wins with his own teammate Denny Hamlin, trading the lead back and forth like two guys who genuinely didn't want to lose to each other. Hamlin won the first segment, Briscoe answered by winning the second. Going into the final 200-lap segment, it was a coin flip. What followed was one of the tightest teammate battles fans had seen all year. Briscoe took the lead early, gave it up, took it back, gave it up again. With about 30 laps to go, Hamlin found something extra in his long-run pace, retook the top spot, and simply drove away. Briscoe crossed the line less than a second behind him, in second place, in what he later called his best-ever all-star race finish. It wasn't a loss that broke him. If anything, it did the opposite. Briscoe left Dover saying the speed was clearly there, that his team had executed for 2 weeks straight, and that the only thing left to do was turn that speed into an actual trophy. He even referenced Tony Stewart's legendary 2011 title run as inspiration, the idea that a driver who gets hot at exactly the right moment can go win a championship almost by force of will. But here's the thing, nobody could have predicted that week. Briscoe didn't have a single points race win to his name all season. 0. Not one. Heading toward the summer, that's a dangerous position to be in, especially under NASCAR's new playoff format, where winning races carries more weight than ever before. So when Chicagoland rolled around in early July, the pressure had quietly been building for weeks. Stick around, because what happened next involves a crew chief, a childhood memory 80 miles from the track, and a very specific box of chocolate. Stage 1 and 2. Byron takes control. Sunday's race opened with 2 renewed rivalries and a driver who simply refused to be caught. William Byron won Stage 1 in dominant fashion, an 80-lap opening segment where he simply had the strongest car on the property. Kyle Larson ran him close for second, with Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric, and Chase Briscoe rounding out the top 5. Behind them, Chris Buescher, Riley Herbst, Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs, and Tyler Reddick completed the top 10. Then Byron did it again in stage 2, sweeping both opening segments. This time Briscoe was right there with him, finishing second with Hamlin third, Ty Gibbs fourth, and Ryan Blaney fifth. A quiet 22-lap green flag run closed out the stage, and by the midway point of the race, it was becoming very clear this Chicagoland surface was going to reward whoever had the best long-run car once the final stage began. That's an important detail, because it's exactly the kind of racing Briscoe had shown he was capable of just 7 weeks earlier at Dover. Long runs, patience, waiting for the moment where track position and tire management mattered more than raw one-lap speed. And in the final stage, that's precisely what happened. The final stage, a teammate battle for the ages. As the race moved into its closing laps, strategy started to separate the field. Several of the leading contenders, including Hamlin, William Byron, Ty Gibbs, Briscoe, and Bubba Wallace, pitted just before a caution flag came out, a gamble that paid off in a massive way. Others, like Ryan Blaney and Christopher Bell, were forced to pit under caution while track crews cleaned debris off the racing surface, effectively costing them precious track position. Tyler Reddick, who had been leading the championship standings by as much as 129 points just a few weeks earlier, ran into trouble again. The 4th time in 5 races, something had gone wrong for him. He fell multiple laps down and never factored into the finish. Meanwhile, Kyle Larson, who had finished second in each of the previous 2 Cup races held at this track, endured a rough night of his own, ending up 34th and extending his own winless streak to 43 races. But up front, it turned into exactly the showdown Chicagoland had been building toward all day. Chase Briscoe took the lead late and simply refused to give it back. Right behind him, the entire way, was his own Joe Gibbs Racing teammate, Christopher Bell, who had rallied from that earlier pit road penalty to mount a furious final charge. With 3 laps to go, Bell was right on Briscoe's bumper. With 2 laps to go, he was close enough to make a move. But on the final lap, Bell's car tightened up in the dirty air coming off Briscoe's spoiler, just enough to cost him the run he needed. Briscoe crossed the line 0.276 seconds ahead of his own teammate to win the race. Denny Hamlin, who had claimed the pole earlier in the weekend, brought his car home third, completing a Joe Gibbs Racing sweep of the podium. It was the 8th time in franchise history the team had gone 1-2-3 in a Cup Series race, and it happened on a weekend when a mountain of storylines were quietly resolving themselves all at once. For Briscoe personally, it was his 6th career Cup Series win, his very first of the season, and it snapped a winless streak that had stretched across 20 races. If you're keeping track, that means the closest he'd come all year was that razor-thin, less than a second loss to his own teammate back at Dover. Everything from that near miss came full circle in the span of about 7 weeks. And what happened in Victory Lane afterward is the part fans are still talking about. Why you need to know about this celebration. After the burnout, after the smoke cleared off the front stretch, Briscoe didn't just climb out and start spraying champagne. He climbed on top of his own car, stood on the roof, and mimed casting a fishing rod out into the crowd. It wasn't a random gesture. Briscoe's primary sponsor is Bass Pro Shops, and this celebration was something he'd apparently been thinking about pulling off since the previous season. He'd never had the right moment to actually do it. Sunday, driving a red, white, and blue paint scheme on 4th of July weekend in NASCAR's first trip back to Chicagoland in 7 years, turned out to be exactly the right moment. Briscoe called it the most American he'd ever felt in his life. There's a deeper layer here, too. Briscoe is 31 years old, and this win did more than end a drought. It was a genuine statement about where his championship hopes stand. 2 of his own Joe Gibbs Racing teammates, Denny Hamlin and Tyler Reddick, still hold a significant cushion in the point standings, with only 7 races left before the 16-driver playoff field officially locks in. But under this year's new points format, winning races carries a premium that regular top 10 finishes simply can't match. One win at the right time can completely reshape a driver's championship math. Briscoe himself put it simply. He said he genuinely believes a serious title run is possible, that it won't be easy, but that his team has clearly shown they're capable of getting it done. But the moment that might say the most about this team happened away from the cameras, involving someone most fans have never heard of. The chocolate story. Briscoe's crew chief is a guy named James Small. Earlier in the offseason, the two of them took a bonding trip together to the United Kingdom, and while they were there, Briscoe discovered British chocolate buttons for the first time. He liked them enough that he tried ordering some online once he got back to the United States, but he said it just wasn't the same as having the real thing. So when Small made a return trip to the UK, he picked some up in person and made Briscoe a promise. If Briscoe won a race on Small's actual birthday, he'd hand-deliver the chocolates himself. Sunday at Chicagoland happened to be that exact day. Small kept his word, delivering the chocolates to Briscoe within minutes of the checkered flag. It's a small detail, almost a throwaway line in most of the race coverage, but it says a lot about the kind of chemistry this team has built, heading into the most important stretch of their season. There was one more personal thread tying this whole weekend together. Lee Cunningham, the veteran rear tire changer on Briscoe's pit crew, is an Illinois native from a tiny township called Leaf River, about 80 miles northwest of the track. Cunningham actually attended Chicagoland's very first Cup Series race back in 2001 as a teenager, sitting in the same grandstands he could point to from pit road on Sunday. In the years since, he's been part of multiple winning pit crews at this exact facility. For a guy who grew up watching this track host NASCAR's biggest stars, being part of a winning team here, on the track's return after a 7-year absence, clearly meant something. Now here's where the story gets bigger than just one race weekend. What this win actually unlocks. Buried inside Sunday's race was another storyline that could matter just as much down the stretch, the in-season challenge, a single elimination bracket-style tournament running alongside the regular points battle with $1 million prize waiting for whoever survives all 5 rounds. Briscoe advanced by eliminating his own teammate, Ty Gibbs, who happened to be the very first winner of this tournament last year. Elsewhere in the bracket, Byron beat Larson in an all-Hendrick matchup. Alex Bowman beat Austin Cindric. Chase Elliott beat Michael McDowell. Hamlin beat Eric Jones. Christopher Bell beat Chris Buescher. Todd Gilliland beat Carson Hocevar. And Ryan Blaney beat Shane Van Gisbergen. So think about where that leaves things. Briscoe now has a Cup Series win, a spot in the championship conversation with 7 regular season races left, and he's still alive in a bracket tournament worth $1 million extra. That's about as complete a weekend as a driver can possibly put together. The Cup Series moves on next to Echo Park Speedway near Atlanta for the Quaker State 400, and the in-season challenge tournament continues right alongside the points battle. Which raises the question everybody in the garage is going to be asking this week. Was Chicagoland the moment Chase Briscoe's season actually turned, or was it a great one-off night that gets swallowed up by 7 teammates all chasing the same championship? Denny Hamlin and Tyler Reddick still sit well ahead of him in the standings. Christopher Bell just showed he can run Briscoe down to the stripe. And Byron, after leading the majority of Sunday's laps, has made it clear he isn't going anywhere either. The next 7 weeks are going to answer a lot of questions, and after what we just watched happen at Chicagoland, there's a very real chance Chase Briscoe walks into the playoffs as the driver nobody wants to see get hot at the wrong time. We'll be tracking every single lap of it right here. If you want to see how this championship picture actually shakes out over the next 7 weeks, make sure you're subscribed because this story is far from finished. Let us know down in the comments who you think is the bigger threat heading into the playoffs. Briscoe, Hamlin, or Reddick. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.